Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our driver ratings for the Italian Grand Prix. Welcome along everybody to the video. If you haven't seen all of our coverage from the weekend, it's all available there for you, F1, F2 and F3. All three series had fantastic racing over the weekend. So if you haven't seen the recap, review, reactions, whatever you want to call them, go check those ones out after you've watched this video. But it's time to give every driver now a score between 1 and 10. Before we do that, though, make sure you like and subscribe. And a big shout out to our members, Dakota, The Joyous James, Robin Myers, and Cinnamon Strudel. Shall we get started then? Because there's someone here who is going to get a rating for the very first time. Franco Colapinto's first Stop and Go F1 rating is almost as big as having your first actual F1 race. So let's get into it, as we always do, with the Haas lads. And here's someone who will not be at the next race, Kevin Magnussen. He has finally achieved the dream, becoming the first person ever, I believe, to have a race ban for accumulating 12 penalty points. He's done it, everyone. But he also had a good weekend, which is a strange mix that only Kevin Magnussen could do. He qualified 13th, ended up 10th. I think he finished properly in 9th, then with that penalty dropped down to 10th. Got 1 point for the Haas team. It was very close, actually, because Alonso was 11th. And I think it was only a few tenths separated them both. So a few tenths separating Magnussen getting a point for Haas or not. He did get the penalty he had a crash with Gasly going into the second chicane there. Then he got the 10-second penalty for that and the 2 penalty points. But overall, you know what, Kevin? I'm still going to give you a 9 because you scored points in a Haas. And that's a hard thing to do. And he had a penalty and he still scored points in a Haas. And now he's got 2 lovely weeks off. He's going to spend some time with his family. He's going to have a lovely time. And he's given an opportunity to probably Ollie Behrman to get acclimatised to the Haas seat before he starts it full time next year. Good guy, Kev, strikes again. Well done. His teammate, Nico Hulkenberg, is someone I've been very high on all season. He was in my top 5 drivers after at least summer break. But this weekend wasn't the best for him. He qualified 10th, and it all went wrong pretty much immediately as the race began. He got pushed out wide by Ricciardo. That saw him lose a few positions. Then as he was trying to regain the positions, he went for a dive bomb that was never on Yuki Tsunoda, crashed into him and received a penalty, and ended Tsunoda's race. And then from there was just nowhere and ended up finishing up in 17th place. So a bad race for Hulkenberg, who I'm giving a 3 out of 10. Moving across to Zhou Guanyu in the Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber car. And you know what? It was just a very Zhou Guanyu weekend. He qualified dead last. And in the end, he finished 18th. He beat Yuki Tsunoda, who didn't finish the race. And he beat Lance Stroll, who pit in the last 4 or 5 laps for soft tyres for some reason. Apart from that, he was massively off his teammate and did not feature on television. It's a 4 for Zhou Guanyu. Meanwhile, Valtteri Bottas is here. He had an alright weekend, actually. Qualified 19th, filling the back row with Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber cars, but ended up in 16th place, which for a Sauber is very good, I feel. So I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10, because unfortunately for Bottas, he's in this Sauber, which might be the most useless F1 car possibly in the modern era. It's either this or the 2021 Haas. They're battling the two of them. I mean, I would say that this one is worse because the 2021 Haas was driven by 2 rookies. So, you can go, well, they're 2 rookies and one of them was Nikita Mazepin, so it was, questionable there. But, you've got Bottas here, very experienced guy, a guy who on his day could beat Lewis Hamilton in equal machinery. He is in this car and still can't get anything out of it, which for me says it's even worse than the Haas was. Bad car, bad time for Valtteri Bottas. It might be his final ever season in Formula 1, and it is not the way his career should end. I feel very sorry for him. I hope that he does get to compete in Formula 1 again, but there's a lot of competition for that second Sauber seat, it would appear. Let's go to Racing Bills now. Yuki Tsunoda didn't have a good weekend either, not his own fault. Qualifying wasn't great, qualifying in 16th. Then in the race itself, as I said, got hit by Hulkenberg relatively early on, and then he just had to retire the car, side pod damage. It's hard to really grade. I'm going to give him a 4, because I usually give a 5 for a DNF, but I did think his qualifying was quite a bit below what Ricciardo was doing, so I'm going for a 4, but it could be a 5. I could be swayed the other way. Speaking of Ricciardo, here he is. So Ricciardo qualified 12th and finished 13th, which, you look at that and you go, well, that's pretty typical for a Racing Bills car. Then you remember everything that happened in this race. So he pushes Hulkenberg out wide at the start and receives a 5-second penalty for that. He comes in on his pit stop to serve the 5-second penalty, and one of the guys on the front wing touches the car accidentally, not really thinking. So because they've touched the car, that doesn't count as the penalty being served. So he serves the 5-second penalty. It doesn't count. He then gets a 10-second penalty for not serving the 5-second penalty correctly, and then he has to serve that. Yeah, I think he had that at the end of his race. So 15 seconds worth of penalties applied to Daniel Ricciardo in this race. Still 13th, which, for a racing bill, I think is pretty good. I'm not going to give him a too high score because, it is his own fault he got that initial penalty, but I think a 6 is appropriate for Daniel Ricciardo's race. And here we go, everyone. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. Franco Colapinto getting his first rating from Stop and Go F1. A big day for any young motorsport fan. They say, one day I dream of becoming world champion. But before that, my main aim is to appear on Stop and Go F1 driver ratings. And here we go for Franco Colapinto. Let's talk through this now. Qualified 18th, finished the race in 12th. Just behind Fernando Alonso. I've seen an interview of Alonso today where he said if he knew it was Colapinto behind him, he would have slowed down and let him pass to have 11th place. This was a very good race. Very good. Obviously, he's come in to replace Logan Sargent. Sargent's best result all year is 11th, and Colapinto has finished 12th, which is the second best results for the second Williams car of the year, if that makes sense. So I think, on a first outing, very, very good. Also, what is interesting is in one race alone, he has jumped Bottas in the standings. So he's ahead of Valtteri Bottas in the standings now. I think he's still behind Zhou. I'm just checking my standings down here. Yeah, so Zhou is 19th, Sargent is 20th, Colapinto 21st, and Bottas 22nd. So he still has some work to do. He can claim some places there. But a very good outing for Franco Colapinto. But it's not a 10 out of 10. For a while, it was a 10 out of 10, but I've changed it to a 9. It's a 9 out of 10 for Franco Colapinto, and the reason for that is because of that little moment in qualifying where he was on his second lap, he went out too far out wide, went through the gravel, and ruined the lap from there, because I do think he had more pace than he actually showed in qualifying. I think his true pace wasn't 18th in qualifying. He could have done better from there. Props to him for, not ending up in the wall, being able to control the car through the gravel and get back on. But I think that's why it's not a perfect weekend, perfect first outing for Franco Colapinto. But a 9, still a very respectable score. Also, as I look here at the photo, I should look down there because on from your view he's down there, from my view he's here, but as I look I can't tell if the photo's real or not. I don't know if it looks around his neckline, it looks like it's been photoshopped, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but I'm 100% sure that he's guessing a 9 out of 10. An interesting thing will be to see if at the end of the year does he outscore Logan Sargent, because obviously he had a lot less races than Logan Sargent, but so far he is doing better, so that's one to keep an eye on as we get towards the end of the year. Here's his teammate Alexander Albon. Solid weekend for him, really good. Qualified 9th, finished 9th. 2 good points there for the Williams team, doing exactly what he needs to do. I think this is only the third time he's actually scored points this year. I might be wrong on that, but he hasn't scored points very often. I think it is, this is completely off the top of my head here, I think it's Monaco, Canada, and Italy is the 3 places he's scored points. So 10 out of 10 for Albon. Fantastic job for the Williams team. Across to Alpine now and Esteban Ocon. What has he gone and done for himself? Well, basically, the 2 Alpines just swapped positions because Ocon qualified 15th, Gasly qualified 14th. Then Ocon finished 14th and Gasly finished 15th. And that's about it, really. Ocon was just left out on his tyres for quite some time, one of the later ones to pit. But in the end, I guess for the Alpine lads, it didn't really make too much of a difference because they finished not too far away from each other in the end. Ocon, I'm going to give you a 7. And then as we go to Gasly, because you finished behind, I'm going to give you a 6. And we're going to move on from there. And here we go. Now, Lance Stroll, for the first time in 2024, the only driver on the grid with the initials LS, which makes my notes making a hell of a lot more straightforward as I no longer get confused. But Lance Stroll qualified 17th, finished 19th. Bad. Yes, it's just bad. So qualification wasn't great. Out in Q1, so obviously not great there. The only cars he beat were the Saubers and Colapinto, so the 2 worst cars on the grid, and a guy doing his first ever F1 race weekend. Then in the race itself was just kind of in that mid-range of the guys who aren't scoring points. Then towards the end, it just seems like his tyres were gone. I haven't actually seen anyone speak about what happened here, but towards the end, he just pits for the soft tyres. I imagine his tyres were just gone because they weren't going for the fastest lap, because what would be the point of that? He just goes for the soft tyres, and then just finishes 19th, the last of the guys who actually finished the race. Wow. When I initially wrote down 4, then as I started talking, I've changed it to a 3. But in reality, it's a 2, isn't it? I mean, he showed up to both sessions and finished both sessions in a way. So, 2. There you go. Here's Fernando Alonso. Again, not a great weekend for Alonso, but I think realistically did the best he could. Qualified 11th, finished 11th. As I said, he was a few tenths off scoring an actual point because of Magnussen's penalty. But yeah, I think Alonso's just in this position now, which unfortunately he's been in a lot in his career, where the car is nowhere near good enough, and he's coming to the close of the season, and he's just going, well, I'm not gonna try really hard. I'll just do what I need to do, and hopefully next year we'll be in a better place. And he'll probably know all the backstage goings on in Aston, and the huge rumour is that Adrian Newey is heading there. And I think he probably knows that rumour is true. So I think that's why he's not in a massive mood at the moment, which we saw a lot when he was in his McLaren days. But, yeah, Alonso, you did your best. You're getting a 7. Okay, time to talk about McLaren. Here we are with Oscar Piastri. He qualified 2nd. He finished in 2nd place. I'm giving him a 9 out of 10. Great weekend for Oscar Piastri. I've been on TikTok today, which, is something I do a lot more than I'd like to admit. And, the whole TikTok algorithm, allegedly it's a good one, and it can pick up on what you like. And it's obviously picked up that I like Formula 1. But within Formula 1, there's lots of subcultures in terms of fans. Like you have Verstappen fans, your Hamilton fans, Norris fans, whoever it might be. So with the TikTok algorithm, I feel like it can tell you're a Formula 1 fan, but it can't instantly tell which fan base you like. And for some reason today, I've been thrown in with a Lando Norris fan base who do not like this man today. They feel he is very mean. They feel he's not a team player. They feel he should be sacked and punished. They are not happy with him whatsoever. And to that I say I think he did really well. You know, he followed the rules of engagement, the papaya rules, which is the stupidest, cringiest thing I have ever heard in my entire life. And if McLaren do not win the Constructors' Championship this year, it will be because they said papaya rules and they got cursed by some kind of motorsport god. But you know what? He had a fantastic move to take lead in this race. He was the faster of the two McLarens. He led it really well. He did exactly what his team wanted him to do. You can ask the bigger question of, should McLaren introduce team orders to say that Lando should finish in front of Oscar in terms of the Drivers' Championship? That is a very valid question to ask, and that's a question for a different video. But here, in the real world, they did not ask that question. They did not tell him to slow down. They did not tell him to move over and let Lando pass. So Oscar did exactly what he was told to do and did a fantastic job with it. Came home in P2. The only reason it's a 9 instead of a 10 is I feel that the McLaren was the faster car on the day yesterday. So realistically, they should have won this race and they didn't. That's why it's a 9, not a 10. Everywhere else, Oscar Piastri did perfectly. I can't wait to see what he does next, because I think he's fantastic. Here's Lando Norris, everybody. So he started on pole position, and he ended up in P3. I think this wasn't a great weekend for Lando. I keep on thinking about it. I think about more and more things appear in my mind of where I go, that's not a top quality drive from Lando. And I don't mean to sound mean towards him, because I like Lando. I think he's very talented. I think he has the potential to become a world champion. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but you never know. But there is things here that I think he's missing. So firstly, great pole lap. He was disappointed with the lap, and he still got pole. So that shows the kind of quality and levels that he has for himself there. That was fantastic. Then we had to talk about the actual race. So, of course, we have to talk about the fact that, yet again, he went from pole to not leading at the end of the first lap. That's a little thing that's now stuck with him now. The same way that Charles Leclerc has the thing that if he has pole, he doesn't win the race. Norris now has the thing that if he has pole, he won't lead at the end of lap 1. It's little weird statistics that appear and get stuck with you forever until you break it, of course. That's the only way you can get rid of those little tags. You do the opposite. It's the same way that Nico Hulkenberg has the whole thing of, the most races to never have a podium. The second he gets a podium, that tag's gone. So, the second Lando leads after the lap 1 from pole, that tag's gone. So, if he wants that to be gone away, that's what he has to do. So, but the thing is, he didn't only just lose out to his teammates, he also lost out to Leclerc, which, for me, if you look at it in terms of the big picture, that is when Leclerc realistically won this race, because he had that first stint out in front consistently. Then they swapped it around in the pit stops, he got the undercut, but then when McLaren went for the 2, Leclerc was already there with Norris and was able to go from there. But then on top of that, he had little moments in the race where he would be off in the gravel and then Leclerc was back on him again. And there's just a few mistakes time and time again. And then, like I said, I think the McLaren is the fastest car. It was the fastest car this weekend anyway. The Red Bull is about the 4th fastest car this weekend. But Lando was stuck behind Verstappen for a couple laps. And it's just you think to yourself, if Max was in the McLaren and Lando was in the Red Bull, how long would Max be stuck behind Lando? And you think, I don't know, half a lap? And it's that kind of thing which kind of drags his score down for me. I have given him a 7, which I think still is a good score for someone who came third in the fastest car, who is supposed to be mounting a title charge. It wasn't a great weekend for Lando Norris. And I'm sorry to all the Lando fans who I know will be upset with this, but it wasn't. Hopefully he can bounce back from it, because I know what Lando's like, where he kind of gets into this place in terms of his mentality when things aren't going his way, and I hope he has some good people around him that are saying, come on mate, it's not that bad, you're still in a really good position, you still have a really good car, you're still a really good driver, let's go out and get this, because it appeared like he didn't have that over the weekend. But I think, he's still doing great. This is still his best season ever. He's still won 2 races, and to see him be in this kind of the current peak of his career. Obviously, he could go on and get higher and higher. And to be in, like, he looks miserable all the time. He's like, come on, have fun. Please. Oh, my God. Right, let's move on to a happier place. Ferrari! And Carlos Sainz, it was his 30th birthday yesterday, and he had a very good race. Qualified 5th, finished 4th in the end. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. I think what it showed here, really, because he did fantastically well on that one stop. I think he did a fantastic job. And it shows how good of a job Leclerc did. Because Sainz pit later than Leclerc. And there was a moment in this race where I was like, Sainz is going to win this. Because Sainz is a strategical genius. And has been the best strategy-making person in Ferrari since the day he walked in through the door. And there was a part in this race where he goes on the radio and he's like, no, we're not going too early. They've all gone too early. We're not going too early. We're going to go later on. I'm like, Carlos, you beautiful man. You've done it again. You've won the race for La Ferrari. In the end, it didn't come to be. You thought maybe a podium, but no. P4, but in the end, a fantastic result for him because Ferrari were the second fastest car this weekend. So 4th is about where you would think he would come on a good day, and it was a good day, and he came 4th. 8 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. But here is the man of the hour, Charles Leclerc. Started 4th, won the bloody race. 10 out of 10. Incredible stuff. Because when you look at this again, you know, we had him pit the lap after Lando Norris did, which was a few laps before Sainz did, but he still made those tyres work, got it through all the way to the end, had quite the gap there, and then just to win that race in the style that he did, he made it look easy. I imagine it was incredibly difficult. This might be his best ever race. I've just thought that there off the top of my head. I can't, you know, there's lots of very good Charles Leclerc races, of course, because he's very good. But this might be his best. Really fantastic stuff. Really good. George Russell now. Now, George Russell is an interesting character because I apparently rate him too low. And I'm trying to rate him higher. But here we are with George Russell. Qualified 3rd, then had a start which was good until it wasn't. So I think out of the top 3, he actually had the best start. He was alongside Piastri just before turn 1. Then Piastri drastically cuts to the left to try to get alongside Lando. George didn't see it coming and locks up going into turn 1, goes for the runoff area, drops down quite a few positions. He also has front wing damage from there. Pits to get that fixed, then continues to just go around in the race. In the end, comes 7th. I think, all things considered, a good result. Because as much as Mercedes seemed to be on pace through a lot of practice and qualifying, they were clearly the 3rd best here. And George's start, imagine if that hadn't happened. If that incident in turn 1 hadn't happened, I think he would have got past Lando as well. You know, you would have had Piastri, George and Leclerc in front of Lando because his start was so good. And then where'd you go from there? I just don't know. But I think considering the damage that wasn't his fault and everything else, 7 out of 10 for George. Decent one. It's okay. And here's the man who'll be in Ferrari next year. It's Lewis Hamilton. I think he was very down on his performance as well, but I thought it was a good one. He qualified 6th, which he was very upset with, but ended up finishing the race in 5th. You know, he kind of just ran a race of his own for a lot of it. There was a bit of pressure from Max at one point, but at the end of the race, that didn't really amount to anything. I think 5th is good. I give him an 8. There you go. Sergio Perez, you know what? Sergio's last 2 races have actually been very good. It's just correlated with the Red Bull being very bad. So Sergio is having about the same results that he has been for the past few months, but now those results are where the car should be. So I think people are noticing that Sergio's having good races. He qualified 8th, he finished 8th in the 4th fastest car. That's exactly where he should be. He should be 8th. I gave him a 7. I thought, very good, Sergio. Hopefully, Red Bull will bring some upgrades. you know, Sergio Perez has the record for the most amount of wins in Baku. I didn't know that until today. So let's see what he can do next week, isn't it? Well, 2 weeks. There you go. Finally, Max Verstappen. Not his best weekend in terms of results, but in terms of where the car was, I thought he did relatively well. Qualified 7th, ended up finishing 6th. I'm going to give him an 8. I thought, you know, considering where the car was, that is a good result. And I also think he sacrificed his overall pace to try and keep Lando behind for as long as he could in that sector where they were overlapping after Lando's second pit stop. I think he should have really pitted a lap or two earlier, as we saw, because he came in basically as soon as Lando got past. But I think he thought, let's try and slow this guy down for a little bit here. So overall, an 8 out of 10 for Max Verstappen there. So there you go. So the highest scoring drivers are Charles Leclerc and Alex Albon, both of them getting 10 out of 10. Lowest scorer is Lance Stroll with a 2. There you go. That is the driver ratings. Driver ratings will be back in 2 weeks' time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, as will the preview and all the racing reactions to that and the F2. All that to come. On Friday, there will be a video out here on this channel. I still don't know what it is, but let me tell you, it's going to be a golden one. You're going to love it. And then, on Saturday, if there's any big news to talk about in the week, I'll be here on Saturday to talk about it, unless it's very big news, and I'll do a breaking news video on the day. There you go. We've been speaking for nearly half an hour now. I'll let you go on with the rest of your day. Have a good one. I'll see you later. Goodbye.